Hello and welcome to Metro Home Theater Tech Tips. I'm Brent.
I'm Adam.
And we got a lot going on. It's Christmas time. It's cold outside. The skies are blue.
Yep.
And the top was down on the Miata this morning.
Was it now?
It's a beautiful day to be alive.
I was going to say, you look very, very spiffy today. You look very,
yeah, I got my cords on. I had my scarf. Dude, it's rocking it.
Felt pretty good, right?
Yeah,
had a
I like the weather.
time.
I like it.
Well, good.
So, we had last week off.
Yes, we did. Yep.
Got a lot going on. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Yep. I know you had a wonderful one with your family.
I did. It was great.
I hid out.
Good.
Now, we got a lot coming up in the very near future. We've got a busy schedule ahead of us.
Yes.
So what have we got today? But wait, before we get there, there's more.
Yeah.
What are we up to in subscribers, young man?
We made it up to 1,100 and somewhere around like 20 subscribers. So again, thank you everybody who has subscribed so far. We really greatly appreciate it. It's so very helpful to us to let us know that we're doing the right thing by having these videos put out there for you. We really hope that we're bringing good information to you and that you can let us know, of course, during today's episode. Let us know over in the chat section over here how well we're doing. And if you have any comments or questions about what it is that we're talking about, or even if you have something that has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about, put it over in the chat section. Or if you're seeing this after the fact and you're looking at it pre-recorded, down in the comments down below, we do monitor those and watch those for comments and questions. So as always, like, share, subscribe is always helpful. And Brent,
don't forget Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Candygram.
Yep. Candygram.
And if you got a good recipe, send that in as well.
That's right. So with that said, the next part of this is really just to say what it is that we're talking about today, right?
And what are we talking about today, Adam?
Well, what we are talking about today is
bum, bum, bum.
To surround sound or not.
Dun, dun.
So there's, and before we go too far, you don't even know about this.
You got a sheet of paper.
I got a sheet of paper. I went ahead and you're not even aware of this yet.
No, I'm not, which makes me a little nervous.
Okay. To surround sound or not to surround sound? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the sound of the sound and mix of stereo, or to take arms against the simple and by upgrading be surround.
Yes. wait, you needed a speaker in your hand.
Something like that, right?
Because without Euroic to speak with, it's just not the same.
Exactly.
So your Shakespeare class finally came to fruition?
It's finally come to fruition. Well, twice now. I was able to do it once before.
I know, you used the exact same thing. Before it was toil, boil, and toil and trouble.
Those, yeah, one of
those. It
those.
was the witches.
Yeah. So
to surround or not surround?
That's correct. So all of this comes down to one of the big calls that we get, one of the big questions that we get is, well, I need to get my Apple TV audio still be surround sound because I've got an AVR and I've got a surround sound system, but I also need that audio in my distributed audio system.
Aha! So now we're talking not just audio breakout, but down mixing.
Right. So there's a lot involved with this, and so
most of it means money.
Yeah, in many cases. But because of that, I want to go ahead and have an episode on how to do that, what to consider for it, and other options for that. So the first question of the day that we have then, of course, is how many audio formats are there? Because there's a lot. Okay,
that's not a fair question to ask without a little bit of parameters.
Okay.
When you say how many audio formats we're referring to, you mean?
Specifically AV audio formats for either stereo or surround sound.
Okay, so we're not talking MP3, MP4,
nope.
PCM,
AC3,
LPCM,
all that kind of stuff.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Now,
so,
interestingly enough, I said AC3, but PCM, LPCM, Dolby Digital, DTS, they all use technically AC3, if I understood it correctly.
Well, no, AC3 was Dolby Digital.
Right.
Specifically.
Right.
And before it became Dolby Digital, it was called AC3.
Right.
That was the original white paper. Then it became sold as, marketed and trademarked as Dolby Digital.
Right. So here's what we come up with. There's actually a lot. You've got PCM, LPCM, Dolby Digital, DTS, you have Dolby Digital HD, DTS,
Theater Master,
Dolby Digital Master. Then you have, of course, now we have Dolby Atmos.
But that's a whole different Dolby. Up to that point, everything still could work on the traditional connectivity. Now, in the early days, let's step back a little bit. Because prior to the advent of HDMI, our only connectivity was a digital optical cable,
Right.
or digital coax.
Right.
And at that point, we could support 5.1.
Yep.
We could support 6.1 because they kind of phoned out that last channel.
Right.
And 7.1. But that was HDMI expanded the capabilities of that dramatically and allowed for more discrete channels.
Right.
Because of a wider bandwidth over the cable versus that.
Right. So of course you've got the Toslink connection, which is SPDIF, which Brent stands for.
Do I look completely flabbergasted, flustered, and I have no clue at this point?
Sony Panasonic digital interface format. If I think I did that right. I'll have to look it up here in a minute. But you have Toslink and then you have digital coax.
Now, SPDIF is not specific to Toslink.
Correct. No.
SPDIF is simply the data and how it's transferred. SPDIF could be on an XLR.
Yep.
SPDIF could be on a digital coax.
Yep.
And SPDIF could be on Toslink, which could also be an ST terminal.
Right.
Which was the one that the mini disc players used.
Right.
And Apple MacBooks.
Right. Yeah. And even their iPods, the ones, it looks like a 3.5,
Right, but
and it
it's
went into
with
that.
as a fiber in the middle.
Right. Exactly. So, now really the best way to do this, and without diving into exactly the details of how does Dolby work, or how does DTS work, or how does PCM work, which will be another episode, because that's really some good information for people out there that are working with it, because there are problems when you get the wrong data rates for Dolby Digital, DTS, or PCM.
Clocking is very, very important.
Exactly. So with that, we'll have another episode on that later on. Today's primarily just going to be talking about how to get the audio where it needs to go in the correct format that it needs to be when it gets there. That's a good way to describe it, right? So
succinct, not.
What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to condense the different formats into 3 different standards.
Okay.
Okay. We have stereo. Now inside stereo, we have PCM, right? PCM, that's what everyone says, you know, Dolby...
pulse count modulation.
Oh, yeah, pulse... yep, exactly. Pulse count
modulation.
Okay. And then you also have Dolby, technically, is inside that as well.
No, there is a 2.0 Dolby signal.
Yes.
But that's not stereo analog, or basic stereo. That is still within the Dolby licensing.
Correct. But it just gives you stereo sound.
It gives you 2-channel sound.
Correct. So, with that, then there is also a DTS version of that where it gives you 2-channel sound.
Yes.
Then of course we go from there to the channel-based surround sound, and I'm very specific about saying channel-based because the next step up from there is not channel-based, and that's what's really interesting about it with Dolby Atmos and DTS:X, their DTS:X Neo or whatever it's called. Really great stuff. That's kind of the buzzword right now. Does your receiver have Dolby Atmos? Does your soundbar have Dolby Atmos? Heck, you can even get Dolby Atmos on your PC, and even on my Samsung phone, I have Dolby Atmos as an option. So, but we'll talk about that here in just a second. But channel-based surround sound is just that. It has so 5.1 is a 6-channel based system. And so you normally would have, your front channel, you have left, center, and right, and then your rear channel would have left and right. And then, of course, the 0.1 being your subwoofer. Now, from there, I'm also including inside that same collection is the 7.1.
Yes.
So 7.1 is just very simple. Again, front stage, rear stage, and then you also have a side rear stage.
Or height.
Depending on where you have the speakers in your
Yamaha
system.
was big on the height, and
yeah, exactly.
Sony, Onkyo, Integra, D&M was bigger on the sides.
Yeah. In the chat, let us know what you guys are using out in the field primarily. Are you all switching over to Atmos, or are you sticking with the more channel-based setup on things? Let us know in the chat section.
And just real quick, remember that in the early days of Dolby, it wasn't even digital.
Correct. Which is, when we talk about the formats and everything, when we do that video, I want to talk about that, because that's actually kind of an interesting feature, we'll call it a feature, to that setup. So, when we
Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, basically. Now you have, of course, in the channel-based surround sound, you have LPCM. Now the cool thing about LPCM and how it works and why it's different than PCM is the fact that it's now linear post, what did you say?
Pulse, not post.
Pulse.
Pulse.
Yep.
Count modulation.
So, LPCM, why it's linear, is for a simple fact that it's now able to do surround sound in the same type of audio connection. So without licensing, there's no licensing necessary for LPCM surround sound. But that is inside that channel-based system. Then after that, then we have the object-based surround sound. So this is where it gets cool. Dolby Atmos, I'm sure, has some great instructional videos.
I know she skipped right over Bitstream.
Well, because Bitstream is like SPDIF in that it is it's like the carrier for all of it. Because you can have Bitstream channel-based surround sound, and you have Bitstream, and in fact you need Bitstream to do the object-based surround sound. Because at that point, basically what's happening is the source device is just sending out all of the information that it has on the disk itself. Yes. There's a lot of stuff involved with it.
I'm just standing here marveling at what's coming out of your mouth.
Yeah, so we'll break down the specifics on those items when we get to when we do that video. Man, I should have just done that video. Is what it sounds like. So, with those three groups, that's where we're starting at, because the source, your AVR and your distributed audio system, and some TVs have a big effect on how that's actually going to work. So, that's how many types of sound we have that we're working with.
Let's start simple.
Okay.
We've got a cable box. We've got a DirecTV or Dish Network satellite receiver. And we need to break out audio. Now, in the old days, it was fairly simple. Because they weren't real picky about HDMI, you just ran analog jacks out of the devices.
Right.
And it had the Dolby down mix inside the box.
Right.
Probably unlicensed.
Yeah.
But they had it.
Yeah.
They didn't really announce it, just was there.
Right.
However, a lot of the devices now, as soon as you plug that HDMI in,
it shuts off.
There is no analog connectivity at all.
Right. Well, and some devices don't even physically have those connections.
Analog jacks anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. How many TVs have no?
Exactly. So that comes in to the next thing. Why is HDMI audio difficult? So, as you were alluding to in that question, or in that statement, as soon as we plug in an HDMI cable, it takes over. Now, there's a couple reasons for that. And it's not because of DHCP.
No, it's HDCP.
HDCP. Pardon
we
me.
had this discussion earlier.
Yeah, we did.
You're thinking about
IP
3
addresses.
weeks into the future for video.
Yes, exactly. So with HDCP, right?
And what does that stand for?
HD copy protection, high definition copy protection.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just making sure.
As
always, everybody, thank you for watching. If you have questions or comments about what it is that we're talking about today, put it over in the chat section.
Yeah, and I want to see what they are, because I'm having a good time with him today.
Yeah, you are. And then if you're watching this after the fact, thank you so much for checking out our video. And of course, you can leave comments and questions down below as well.
And please, if I have my history wrong on any of this, correct me.
Yeah,
because it'll give him a happy smile.
Yeah, exactly. So, when we are working with the HDMI audio, let's go back to what you were alluding to first. We'll start simple. We got a cable box.
Yes.
All right. In fact, we'll break it down even more. We have a Comcast cable box. Are those the ones that are IP based now that have only an HDMI output on them?
A lot of them only have HDMI on because it saves cost.
Yeah, let's assume that it is. So
DirecTV is the same way now.
Cable box doesn't have, actually DirecTV, we'll use DirecTV as an example. So DirecTV, they only have an HDMI output on their Genies. Now, some of the older Genies still have that 9-pin DIN connector that will give you analog audio, and it does work. I have used that myself in some installations. But
and component.
But
it's locked at 480 if you plug in an HDMI.
Right. So, when you are using that connection, let's say from there, I'm going to my surround sound AVR. I have a theater. I have two. Actually, in fact, I have a distributed audio system, which has speakers out in the patio, in the kitchen, in the bedrooms, and all over the place.
Obviously, we're paying you too much money.
No.
Because you have all those things.
No. This is my dream world.
Oh,
Dream world.
Okay.
But I also have my surround sound in the living room or in the great room. Now, I want to
I'm back to my statement.
Okay. I'm back to, I want to keep my surround sound audio because let's say, for instance, I like to watch things on the Sci-Fi Channel and movies and whatever else on there, as well as normal TV, which for the life of me, I don't fully understand. Why does Why do the news channels have surround sound audio?
I legitimately have no answer.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
I get it. I get it in racing, football.
Sports and movies, right?
I don't get it in golf.
Yeah.
And baseball.
Yeah. Golf
and maybe,
baseball.
Maybe the crowd noise.
Maybe, but like on the news channels, that's my biggest thing. Why do we have surround sound audio on the news channels? If anybody is in
that industry,
the broadcast industry, thank you. Let us know. I'm really curious as to why we have surround sound on news channels. If it's just because, I can get that and understand it, but if there's a specific reason other than that, I'd like to know.
Yeah, because you actually have to have an engineer to do the steerage.
Right. So, when we are looking at from there, so we have our surround sounds room, and then we have stereo audio in the other rooms through our distribution system. Most distribution systems don't have a digital input on them, which would do the down mixing portion of it. Most of them just have a standard RCA input or analog audio input.
And even the ones with digital frequently will not do the down mixing.
Correct.
Sonos.
Correct. So,
Pios.
And now Control4's Triad system does do the down mixing on theirs, which is a great feature, and it makes life a heck of a lot easier as we move to that. Now,
was that a little attaboy?
It was an attaboy.
Okay.
I'll give him an attaboy when attaboys are due. So, how do we get the audio off of the HDMI connection over to our distribution system?
Well, that question comes down to one major point.
Right.
Do I need to send forward 2-channel or do I need to send forward multi-channel? Because there's 2 different boxes depending on your application.
Right.
Actually, multiple boxes, but really 2 types.
So I'm actually going to take one step back without adding any extra devices. I'm going to give an option because you can take the audio out of certain receivers, certain AVRs that have a second zone output on them over to your, exactly, I know where you're coming from, take it over there to that. Now, there's a couple problems with that. One, the first problem is going to be control. A lot of times you have issues in a larger system or even a smaller system. Actually, a smaller system is probably more difficult because you don't have the full control system there to do it, but controlling it, telling it, okay, well, which source am I listening to and sending out the second zone? The second problem with that is
which to me is the number one problem.
Right. The second problem to that is the down mixing problem because I have my surround sound and most AVRs that are out there now do not down mix the surround sound audio to stereo for specifically
the second zone. Okay, so you completely skipped my concern.
I did. Oh, you have another zone.
Yeah, delay.
Another one. Oh, the delay.
The delay.
Yes. So, with the delay...
Find me an AVR where there's no delay.
Actually, I will find you many of them because if they're not, if you are getting stereo sound
on HDMI,
on an HDMI, and then the AVR is handling it, there's very little delay, if any.
There is still.
Yeah. So, with that, those are the 3 big problems: how to control it, down mixing it, and also if there is any kind of delay on the sound. So, with that, that's where it comes into the question of, well, what are you willing to give up and what are you not willing to stand for? So I'm not willing to stand for a badly controlled system. When I'm designing a system for a client, it has to be seamless to the point where they push a button and it just works on that side. That's how I handle things on my end. I'd rather not have to go through the process of training somebody on something and rather just be fairly user intuitive, right? Which you and I won't have more discussion on that, and we'll have our own private discussion on that afterwards, right? So then from there, the next thing is that I'm not willing to give up surround sound in my surround sound zone.
Lord, no. That's why you spend the money.
That's why you just spent a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 on an AVR.
The hell are you shopping for a couple $100?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to Best Buy, right? Or Walmart. So the last thing, of course, being the delay. Now, the delay, depending on how far apart your zones are, delay may not be a problem because if there is no possibility of hearing the other zone,
yeah, if you're on the patio versus the theater, it's not an issue.
Right. Now, so those first 2 things are my things that I do not want to give up.
However, just so you know, if you're listening to a music channel, some of the music channels are in multi-channel surround.
They are.
And if you've got an open great room and you've also got speakers in the kitchen and the patio and it's all open, it will drive you crazy.
Yes, it will.
On that delay.
Yep. So, don't want to do that. Now,
no.
So here's what we do. We add in one extra device. We are going to put in place an audio breakout. right? So we have back here is our audio breakout. This is our older one. This is the ABO2, CS-HDM ABO2. So this is an older generation.
Well, that doesn't solve your problem, though.
It does not.
The 2 doesn't.
Yeah, the 2 does not. Now, what this does do is this does give me better control, because I'm now taking the audio directly from this point here, and I'm sending it into the distributed audio system.
Right.
Right?
But that one's not sending it forward on the 2.
Well, the 2 is not. Now let's pretend it's the 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the ABO3 does transmit the audio out the HDMI output on this.
Continues forward.
It continues forward. Now the problem though is that I still don't have stereo sound.
Right. You've lost the center channel because all you're doing is breaking out the right and left.
Right. Now, and if it's Dolby Digital, you may not get anything. In fact, you'll probably get a garbled. Not even that. You'll get that weird noise that you get out of a compressed signal. So, the way to get around that is one last piece. Actually, there's 2 options. You can either do the ABO3 with the CS-DAC2, which is a down mixing digital to analog converter, not that piece, or you can do this piece. This is the CS-HTM ABOD.
With the licensed
Dolby Digital and
decoding.
DTS audio decoding. Now, this is important again because of one simple fact. I'm now keeping, actually two great facts. I am having better control because I'm having a more direct connection from the Apple TV or whatever source device I have to my distributed audio system. And I'm also down mixing that audio from the surround sound audio out to stereo. Right? You want top down?
Give me a top down.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
There we go.
Got it?
Got it. This, as long as we've been doing this is still hard.
You got it upside down.
I do?
You do. There you go. There we go. Perfect. So that piece is great. It will give you Dolby Digital audio out the HDMI connection, and it will downmix the stereo audio on the RCA connections on the underside of it there.
And it's real RCA connections, not a stereo mini.
Right.
Now there's also an optical out.
That is correct.
So if you do have a device that can accept an optical input, a Sonos, a Hios, or a secondary AVR,
Yep.
it's a great way to do it because you help eliminate ground loops.
Yes.
Over the optical cable versus a copper-based cable.
Now, what's also interesting is that all of those outputs are live at the same time.
Yes.
And so that means that if you have other types of audio devices that you need to get that signal into at the same time, or you just have different types of connections rather than just the RCA connection, you can use it that way as well. So that's just one problem, though. There's a couple other problems. And specifically, it runs into EDID problems. So we are the HDMI people, and so inevitably we're bringing it back over to that topic. But what I want to talk about is televisions that do not accept Dolby surround sound or Dolby Digital audio.
That's the one that starts with an S and doesn't follow it closely with an O.
Correct. Yeah. Starts with an S, ends with a G.
Yeah.
Now,
they offer more panels now than they used to.
Yes. Now, and I will say, this is an older problem. The newer newer panels that they have, newer displays that they have, don't have that problem.
There's a lot of those panels out there.
But it's out there. So here's what we run into with this. Let's say, for instance, I have that panel that does not accept Dolby Digital.
Okay.
Okay. It only accepts PCM or LPCM. Now.
2-channel audio.
2-channel audio. Now.
Not 2.1, just 2.
Correct. So, in that case, what it's going to do is it's going to talk back to the source device, and it's going to tell the source device, don't even try to send me Dolby Digital, send me stereo PCM. Now, in certain circumstances, you're going to run into a problem with that, because if you then have that connection, but then you're using a device to get a digital connection off of that HDMI cable, you won't have surround sound, you'll have PCM. So there are certain circumstances where you need to tell it what type of audio to send it. Again, our ABOD, it does have the ability to take over the EDID information for the audio.
And broadcast the correct multi-channel commands back to the source.
Back to the source. Now, the reason why that's important is because I can still get the stereo information from the TV, but the ABOD is actually going to say, we're going to get rid of that information, and instead, I'm going to tell it that I want the bit stream information from the source device. Now,
So the multi-channel.
The multi-channel audio. What that's going to do is it's going to tell the source device, give me everything you've got, give me the highest quality audio you have, send it to me, and we'll use that instead.
Assuming it's not Atmos.
Assuming it's not Atmos. Now, that's where I was going next with this. Atmos. Atmos and DTSX. Now, with Atmos and DTSX, and actually that's kind of part of the next question that we have on here, is what requirements are there? Or caveats? What kind of caveats are there with all of these types of setups?
Well, the biggest change is when you looked at surround sound in the past, you had discrete channels that were put into the content.
Yes.
A center channel, a right front, right rear, left rear, and maybe height or center channel ceiling.
Right.
And it was discreetly recorded into it, and it was very specific. This is this channel, and this channel.
Yep.
Atmos does not do that.
No.
Atmos sends you, here's a global view of where we want the audio to be. Then the processor has to take that information and say, do they have 5 speakers, 7 speakers, 6 speakers, 9 speakers?
Yep.
And determine based on that
Yep.
where they, the AVR or the pre-pro, want to send the audio.
Right.
So the source and the content is not the arbiter.
Yep.
The pre-pro or AVR's processor is.
That's what's really cool about that. So what he's alluding to, or what he's talking about, alluding is probably the wrong word for it, what you're talking about is specifically, for anybody who's played video games, you'll have a better understanding of it. When you play a video game, you go into a virtual world, especially a 3D game. In a 3D game, I can take my controller and I can turn around and view different things like this. What's happening with DTSX and Dolby Atmos is it is creating that world, that environment, in a 3D environment digitally inside of the AVR. Now, inside the AVR, what it's doing then is it's saying at these coordinates over here, and it gives you an XYZ coordinate location in that environment, it will be a helicopter sound. Now, here's what's cool about that. You can have multiple sounds. Each object, each sound is an object in there. So just like in a video game, you would have an object of some kind that's in the video game world, and you can interact with it, and it moves around or whatever else it may be. It's the same thing with Dolby Atmos and DTSX. That sound is an object, and it can move around in that 3D environment, and then the processor inside the AVR does all the math and everything to know which of my outputs should I send this audio to next. So you can have it may be all the way in the front right-hand corner, maybe up just a little bit, and it's going to send all the audio out that front right speaker, right? It may be somewhere in between there, or maybe it's over here on one side, and it's going to say it's back a little bit. It's going to be the front left speaker and this speaker over here, and so it's going to mix it between those two channels.
If there's a speaker there, if not, it has to throw it further.
Correct, but it knows that based on the number of channels you have. And do yourself a favor, do those little the little microphones like the Odyssey stuff. Mm-hmm. It makes a huge difference in Dolby Atmos because it needs to know distances from where you're sitting in order for it to sound correct. So with that, it's really neat because as those objects are moving around, now we have another environment to work with. So with normal channel-based surround sound, it's one level. We have everything right here. You may have height speakers, but all that they really do are just filler. They don't really do a whole lot.
That's it. There's a slight delay and...
Right. With Atmos, instead, what's happening is we are now taking this one level, one plane, keeping it there, but we're also putting speakers in the ceiling, or if you have to do the reflective speakers, that works as well, and it's throwing that audio up. And so what happens then at that point is it says, here's a helicopter here in front of you. Helicopter starts spinning up, and you hear it spinning up, and it's right here in front of you, and then it says, okay, take off. And so the helicopter lifts up off the ground. On the screen, you see what's happening on the screen, and that helicopter starts lifting up. Now, in your ears, you start hearing that helicopter go up, because now it's moved the audio into the channels that are in the speakers in the ceiling. And so it's mixing it between the two of them. So that's what the object-based audio does and how it works.
And it's darn exciting.
It's great. If you haven't heard it yet, if you haven't really experienced a full Dolby Atmos system, do yourself a favor, go over to, I think Best Buy has a showroom in their Magnolia section that has Dolby Atmos in it. Check that out. You can also experience Dolby Atmos in a lot of movie theaters that have like the larger format.
Cobb.
Cobb has a great one. Also, check out your local AV guys. If you have a competitor that's in the area that maybe has it, go check them out
That you're
as
on
well.
good friends with.
Yeah, that you're good friends with. Go check out their system. If they have Dolby Atmos, it is worth it, and it's a great setup. So, now that we talked about how nice it is, let's talk about why it's a pain in the butt.
Because you can't take audio out of it.
Unless you have something to take that 3D environment and know which channels you're trying to break it out of and know which side of that it's coming from, you have no way of getting that audio on a stereo connection.
The one redeeming fact to help you on this is, unlike music channels and content where you're typically music you're playing or maybe a sporting event, Atmos is really right now relegated to action and sci-fi movies.
Right.
So the chances of you attempting or wanting to distribute that through your house-wide or your PA system is nominal. I'm not going to say it's non-existent, because as soon as I do that, if I'm doing that, I want to do that anyway.
Yeah.
But with those movies, that's not generally distributed. However, I am reasonably sure some people are working on an answer to that question.
Yes.
Yes.
So we'll talk about it. Stay tuned. Stay tuned to Metro Home Theater
Some people are working on an answer to that.
Some people are working on something. Stay tuned. So that is one of the problems. Now, that's something that when you are designing the system, you need to take that into account. If you have a Dolby Atmos system and somebody and your client is insistent on there being Dolby Atmos audio for whatever media they're watching, if it has it available, give it to them as a dedicated system. Don't try and break out audio for a distributed audio system or a stereo TV or a second zone. Don't even try to. Give them a dedicated Dolby Atmos
Even
system.
if that means a second Apple TV or Fire Stick or Disney, whatever, Disney Plus server.
Yep.
Because getting that to go the other direction, it's a whole lot less expensive to buy a second Apple TV, Amazon, or whatever, and use that as the...
Right. So do yourself a favor with that. Definitely set up a dedicated system for the Dolby Atmos or the DTS-X audio, as that will be a much more stable system, and it's going to work. Because right now, there is no other way to break that down unless you're willing to give up that Dolby Atmos signal. And again, at that level, if you're willing to give up the Dolby Atmos signal, you can then go ahead and just bring it back down to
Dolby Digital.
Dolby Digital, and get your surround sound signal, and then use something like a down mixing audio breakout to get the audio where it needs to go. So,
but if you're going to do that, I would definitely have a control system and have that put in as a macro, know all the steps, and be able to engage it with a single button, because otherwise it's going to be a pain in the rear.
Right, exactly. So, a lot of information in about 30 minutes worth of time.
Well, let's step back a second, because
we
glossed over a lot of things.
We did. What you got?
So let's just step back, and let's say we're doing Pandora off our for Apple TV or something like that. At that point, you got Pandora, Amazon Music, Spotify, whatever it is.
Sure, Spotify.
You don't always have to have the Dolby down mix.
Right.
At that point, you've actually got a number of excellent solutions. We're back to the basic ABO3 if you're 4K.
Yep.
Or if you have an older AVR, we have an excellent switch that has the audio breakout built into it.
Yeah.
And this is a great way to handle it, because if you need 4K capability, you don't have a 4K AVR and you're not doing Atmos.
Yeah.
This switch will allow you to take all of your HDMI sources, 4 HDMI sources into it, and then off to the display with either a digital coax, an optical out surround sound to your AVR and an analog output, but you do have to turn off. You have to put it to 2.1.
Correct. Now, the cool thing about that is that it also has ARC built in.
Yeah, that's a great feature.
So you can still do the smart TV. So that's what's nice, because if somebody has a surround sound system that's an older one, where maybe it's an HDMI 1.3 or 1.4.
And doesn't support ARC.
Doesn't support ARC, or doesn't give them the 4K. You can put something like this in there. It's a little bit cheaper than buying a brand new AVR.
Yeah, and let's face it, some of these people put $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 into their AVRs.
And they're good AVRs.
And they sound great.
Yeah.
Anthem,
Macintosh.
Max.
I mean, lots of good stuff.
There's a lot of great product out there, and it's like, well, sir, the AVR that you bought 3 years ago for $8,000, I'm sorry, it doesn't do this.
Right. Right.
This is the answer because it gives you that 4K.
Yep.
And allows you to keep that plus ARC.
Yep.
And the really nice thing about ARC is, and for a long time we fought against it because it was very problematic.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, with this, the problems pretty much go away.
Yep.
ARC is a single IR command.
Yep.
Or button, you can do it either way.
Yep. Yep.
But it's an IR command, so you can have all of your fancy schmancy apps on your television, and they're growing quickly.
They are, and they're getting better. They're getting much better.
Yeah, the navigation. In fact, we were playing around with this TV, and let's face it, we're not a major proponent of this brand.
Yep.
But the menu on it?
Oh, it's great.
It's great.
And I'll be honest, Samsung does have a very good CEC library.
Yeah, you were quite enamored with it the other day.
We were testing out a new HDMI product, and we're testing to make sure that it was passing CEC through it, and it worked great. And in fact, we hadn't even tried CEC from this TV to our Blu-ray player, the Oppo, and it worked great. So I will say we give them a lot of crap, but. Well, I gotta say, where they get things right, they get it very right, and their CEC and their ARC capabilities are great.
And the next thing is, there's a lot of excellent audio apps in the televisions now.
Yes.
Plus, you get the metadata and the album art and all that.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are starting to use their TVs as a music source.
Yeah.
And why not?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you have the ability to Chromecast or Apple AirPlay or whatever else you have on there as well.
Why would you not want your Yule log in 4K HDR?
Yeah, exactly.
And still have the music audio playing.
Right. So, with that, that's kind of basically what we've covered with that.
Now, what is next week before you walk away?
So, next week, we are going to be talking about, you're going to put me on the spot with this one.
I do every time, and every time you say I put you on the spot.
I forget what it is because I don't
I know,
prepare
we spent
myself.
2 hours yesterday going over all of this.
So, next week is actually kind of interesting. We have Who's on First, What's on Second? What is EDID?
And you forgot this.
I did. It's a great header.
It's a great title, and you forgot it.
After that, we've got Rudolph's Nose So Bright.
I know what that one is.
What is HDR? And that's going to be the week after that. Now, the week after that, of course, is the week of Christmas, and so we are off for that week. And so, Merry Christmas to everybody who is there during that time. If you're looking for videos to watch, we have an entire catalog of videos.
And more coming every day.
More coming every day. I'm sure there'll be some stuff released at that time as well. Now, the end of the year, the week after that, we're going to be doing a review over the last year and also what to look forward to.
And that will be pre-recorded.
Yes, it will be.
For all of you on the left coast, I am flying to LA on Christmas Day.
This is a warning. This gives you an opportunity to run away.
To run away quickly and far. But if anybody's around,
there you go.
In LA, give me a holler because I'm there from the 25th till the 17th of January.
Yes, you are. And so during the time that Brent's away, we'll also be doing some videos with some local dealers in the area. So keep an eye on us during that time.
An excellent series on networking.
Yep, during that time as well.
Yes.
So definitely check us out for that as well. As always, everybody, thank you for watching. If you have more comments or questions after the fact, leave them down in the chat in the comment section below. Or, of course, if I'm still talking and you want to put it over in the chat section over here on the side, feel free to do so as well. I'm still have it up here.
We'd love some suggestions on what you would like to see in our yearly recap.
Yeah.
Which is for the week of Christmas.
It's the week after Christmas.
The
Wednesday after Christmas. And so definitely check us out during that time as well. If you have any questions or comments about anything that we've talked about today or anything in general when it comes to AV, even nothing that has to do with it, if you just want to talk to us, put it down in the comment section. We'll go ahead and read that as well. And then we'll see you next time.
Don't forget, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Yep. Like, share, subscribe.
Our Metro YouTube, which you're watching now.
Yep. Hit that bell notification to let you know when we go live, which is, of course, every Wednesday at 3 p.m., except, of course, when the holidays happen.
And, of course, MetroHomeTheater.com to look at all of our products.
Right.
Don't forget to call your salesman. Tip early, tip often.
Yeah, yeah.
And we do take cash, candy, and gift cards.
Reboot early.
Reboot often.
Turn off CEC.
Don't cut your wires too short.
And call tech support.
Have a great week.
I'm Adam. That's
I'm Brent. We're gone.
We'll see y'all next time.